Following Article 30 of the European Asylum Support Office Regulation, a hearing from the first candidate that has been put forward by the Management Board meeting in Valletta, selecting Mr. Robert Visser from the Netherlands as Executive Director. So we are hearing from Mr. Visser, having congratulated him for this selection process, and then we will be discussing as the way forward as to how are we to proceed, because Article 30 of the European Asylum Support Office Regulation foresees that the Parliamentary Committee may adopt an opinion for the Asylum Support Office Management Board. The decision to adopt or not an opinion shall be submitted right after by the coordinators to the committee. To do so, we are suspending our committee works for some 10 minutes to give the coordinators the possibility to define their position. And thereafter, the committee will relaunch its work in camera to decide whether we want or not to endorse the coordinator's position. So, following this suggestion to proceed, first of all, we hear from Mr. Visser. Please be welcome.
Honourable Mr. President, honourable members of Parliament, it is a great honour and privilege for me to present myself to you as the candidate Executive Director of the new European Asylum Support Office, and to share thoughts about the establishment and the expectation of EASO. The establishment of EASO is a contribution to the common European asylum system. It is in line with the development of solidarity within the European Union. Dealing with asylum applications in a fair, fast and firm way is in the interest of those in need of international protection. It is at the same time in the interest of the necessary public support for the asylum policy and practice in the European Union. Both are, of course, points of interest for the European Parliament also. Applying common standards and dealing with asylum applications in a non-diverging way throughout the European Union is the best way to deal with mixed migration flows, and this will also be a valuable contribution against asylum shopping. At a political level, the Council of Ministers, the European Parliament and the European Commission decide on asylum policy and asylum regulations. And in this respect, three questions can be asked: how to reach evidence-based decisions on asylum policy and asylum regulations, how to reach comparable implementation and analogue operational practices based on common regulations, and how to guarantee the quality of decision-making in individual asylum cases. In all three, the European Asylum Support Office can and should play a role. The mission of EASO is to support the implementation of the common European asylum system and to support the Member States and their asylum services. EASO will be an independent centre of expertise, and the main task of EASO is to facilitate, coordinate and strengthen the practical cooperation among Member States. It will be a service-oriented organisation, and it concerns the organisational and logistical support as well as information and expertise. It will be an honest broker, neutral, independent, impartial and transparent, and it will stimulate and facilitate the exchange of experts, expertise and experience. By doing so, EASO will also be an instrument of solidarity and mutual trust. EASO will be in close contact with important other stakeholders, such as the United Nations High Commissioner on Refugees, and of course also with Frontex and the Fundamental Rights Agency. Special attention will be given to the dialogue with civil society. A special consultative forum will be set up to that effect. All in all, this provides for three perspectives for the work of EASO. The first perspective is looking from common policy to common practice. This means an answer to the question how to realise effective common practice on the operational level based on the common policy. The task of EASO in this respect is to support and contribute to the common implementation and the convergence of national asylum practices. The second perspective is looking from common practice to common policy. Here EASO can play a new role in the European process by organising operational knowledge to be used for new policies and new legislation. This means supporting the EU and national policy processes by providing experience and evidence-based input. This bottom-up approach can add to the quality of legislation. The third perspective is looking from common problems to common solutions. This horizontal approach will support the Member States in practical cooperation, providing exchange of experiences, best practices, common training, joint actions and missions, as well as support when particular pressures arise. The work of EASO has different aspects. First of all, there is the operational support. This is support in capacity building. This means supporting the national asylum services in their work on the asylum applications by organising expertise on language analysis, age determination, medical advice, document reception and reception facilities, and so on. This includes also emergency support for Member States that are temporarily confronted with particular pressure in the asylum area. An asylum intervention pool will be set up with experts and expertise from the Member States. From that pool, special asylum support teams can be composed in case of particular pressures. Second, there is the element of training and quality. This contains the further developing and expanding of the European asylum curriculum, but also workshops, trainings and training material, as well as guidelines, operating manuals and common standards. Thirdly, information and analysis. This is a very important part of the work. It will focus on trend analysis, asylum analysis, early warning, country reports and the annual asylum report. Then there is the external dimension and the third country support. This means capacity building and cooperation with countries of origin and countries of transit, as well as resettlement. In this respect, attention is needed for more durable solutions in cooperation with the UNHCR. Then there is the coordination and front office task. EASO can play a role in this field for both Member States and the UNHCR in case of reallocation from within the European Union and resettlement from outside the European Union. EASO will not be the sole organisation to provide support in the asylum area. Voluntary bilateral support between Member States, of course, can and should continue. Here I would like to remind of the fact that EASO has no decision-making power regarding individual asylum claims. It is meant to support the common European asylum system by supporting the practical and operational levels in the Member States. It is for the Member States themselves to decide on individual asylum applications. EASO is a new organisation. It has to be set up from scratch and it will take some time to become fully staffed and operational. But I will not wait for that moment to get started with real operations. The focus in the first year will have to be realistic and pragmatic, and the work will concentrate on three main items. First, the transfer of successful pilot projects that have already been set up, such as Eurosil, the European Asylum Curriculum and the Interpreters Pool. Second, the collection and dissemination of country of origin information by organising joint teams and a common portal. And third, but certainly not last, the support of the Greek National Action Plan. EASO will be actively involved in this process. As soon as there is enough staff, EASO will take over the operational coordination for the asylum part of the action plan. The focus will be on short-term support and on structural support, setting up asylum service reception facilities, training, quality systems and handling of backlog. The experience of the Member States is vital to the success of this project. That's the real expertise that is needed in Greece. To end, may I say that I am particularly happy with the fact that the EASO regulation provides for a direct relation of the Executive Director to the European Parliament. I hope to get the opportunity to report to your committee on the work of EASO in the future, as I am fully convinced of the added value of this new European organisation to the European project. Mr. Chairman, Europe is a work in progress. EASO is a new workstation to that effect. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Visser, and thank you for making it short, which will certainly help us out to manage this point in time. So, as foretold, we're opening a short discussion. First, to the coordinators. Mr. Busuttil.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and thank you, Mr. Visser, for your presentation. And congratulations on your nomination. On behalf of the EPP, I would like to wish you well, because the EPP considers that the establishment of the European Asylum Support Office is a very important step forward in achieving a truly common European asylum policy. I am also very pleased that you have mentioned towards the end of your intervention the support that EASO will be giving to the Greek National Action Plan, because only last week a delegation from this committee was in Athens, and there we were able to see with our own eyes that Greece does indeed need a great deal of help in making sure that its national administrative capacity is sufficiently strengthened to be able to have a service that is efficient and effective. I have to say that we did not see in Athens a system that is in place and effective, so we consider that EASO's role will be crucial there. Let me come quickly to my questions. I have 3 questions to put to you. The first deals with solidarity, the solidarity mechanism. You have not mentioned this specifically, Mr. Visser, but you know very well that this committee and this Parliament expects from EASO a particular focus on solidarity, meaning solidarity with asylum seekers, but also, and this is the other side of the same coin, solidarity with those member states that are currently facing and are currently shouldered with the burden of a mass influx of asylum seekers and being left to their own devices by the member states of the Union in dealing with it. So my question to you is, what are your plans on making sure that EASO develops but also implements or sees to the implementation of an adequate solidarity mechanism? I ask this question also in the light of the pilot project that was established in 2009 specifically for Malta. My hope is that project will be extended to other countries that could be in similar situations, but it is clear that that project was not sufficiently effective. The second question relates to unaccompanied minors. The issue of children, and especially unaccompanied minors as vulnerable groups, is an issue that is of concern to this Parliament. Only next week we shall be voting upon a new directive on human trafficking, which includes a specific article on the needs of children, especially children who are unaccompanied minors and victims of trafficking. But unaccompanied minors are often migrants who cross our external borders, and they are often also asylum seekers and present a challenge in their own right. I would like to have your views on unaccompanied minors. And finally, I'm also glad to note in your speech that you are keen to establish a relationship with Parliament. Well, I have to tell you that as the committee that was the competent committee to see the regulation establishing EASO through, thanks also to our rapporteur, Mrs. Lambert, she is here, we are also very keen to establish a healthy working relationship with you and your office. So I wish to ask you, how do you see that happening? Thank you.
First, let's hear from the rest of the coordinators, and then we'll get back to the candidate. Madame Guillaume.
Oui, bonjour. Veuillez m'excuser pour mon...
Yes, good afternoon. I'd like to apologise for being a little bit late arriving, but congratulations on your appointment as well. I have 3 questions that I'd like to put to you in a moment, but just before I get to that, you described the tasks that your office will have to work on right away, including the 3 most important ones: development and cooperation, practical cooperation between member states, and, as was just pointed out, support for member states who are subject to specific pressure. And then a contribution to implementation of the joint asylum system and the exchange of good practice, in particular in that context. As you also know, we've been awaiting this for a long time. Although you need some time to get up and running, I think that you really need to need to get running as quickly as possible. Now, having made those preliminary remarks, my 3 questions, I'll be very brief. I've just described those tasks, which, as I say, I think are very important, and the expectations that we have of your office. What are your feelings about prioritising those tasks, how to prioritise those tasks, and what are you going to attack by way of priority once your people are in place? Second point, as I said earlier, I'd like to ask you how you envisage taking action, what your opinion is and what your office's opinion is with regard to countries that are subject to particular pressure, and what advice, what instructions would you give those countries? And then to conclude, obviously this office is not going to be the panacea for all asylum-related problems, including some practical difficulties that we're encountering at the moment. As you know, of course, the asylum package is in some difficulties. There is a hold-up on some important aspects of the directive. There's talk of rejigging. In your opinion, what do you think about the way this upward harmonisation of procedures and so on might work in the future? Thank you.
Thank you very much, Chair. I also would like to congratulate for your appointment, sir, for your nomination. Your appointment still depends on the procedures to be carried out, including by this Parliament. And I have actually 2 questions, one more, let's say, at the political level, and another one more like political/management level. First of all, I'd like to see from your perspective, when do you think that the service will be fully established and functional? I understand the transition year, but then I would like to see what is your views on when you will be fully functional. More at the political level, I'd like to see your views on how the relationship between EASO and the member states will be, namely in terms of the independence of this service of EASO. It's not only a matter of rhetorical words like what means you to do the job, but really in terms of preserving independence, what this independence means for you, in fact. Also, at the political level, it is your views on how you will cooperate with other agencies playing a role on issues related to asylum, Frontex above all, I would say. And at the management level, we know that the member states preserve their autonomy in appointing the experts, but then you will be the director of this service. How do you see yourself playing an active role so you don't wake up one morning with a number of people working for you, but you not knowing anything about them? So what is your managerial view in this respect? Thank you.
Thank you, Mrs. Sargentini.
Thank you, Chair. Dank u, voorzitter.
Thank you, Chairman, I wanted to say. Well, Mr. Visser, congratulations for your appointment, which is imminent. As far as the Greens are concerned, the European Asylum Support Office is an enormous step in the right direction, a step forwards towards a joint asylum policy, a policy where asylum seekers know where they are and where we attempt to reduce the distinctions or the differences that member states have in the way that they judge asylum applications, and where we can learn from each other's best practices. I think I've realised how important your work is. In fact, I did that last week in Athens, because when an asylum seeker is sent back, a Dublin claimant, no report is seen as no news is good news. And in Athens, in fact, they're not even opening the news, they're opening the mail, rather, because they're so overwhelmed. And people are being sent back under those circumstances. And that, of course, is clearly unacceptable. That sort of practice, where the administrations of one member state is really not aware of what the administration of another member state is doing, that no news is good news approach is one that we cannot support, and I do hope that you would agree with me on that point. Now, there's an enormous crisis in Greece at the moment when it comes to asylum and migration. As you know, Frontex border guards are active on the terrain there, and I was wondering if you could provide if you could shed some light on how you see the role of the asylum support team, which is going to have to work in the future. Because, of course, we're going to have them working with the RABITs, the rapid intervention teams that Frontex has. How can you make sure that the Asylum Support Office can respect the right of people to request asylum? Because what we understood on our trip to Athens was that Frontex is not primarily the place where you ask for asylum. So where is your first port of call? How can we stop people being robbed of the opportunity to claim asylum? So I do hope that you will soon give the floor also to the rapporteur for this dossier. Thank you.
Thank you. As I don't see any representative of the ECR, then we go to Mr. Tavares on behalf of the GUE.
Thank you very much, Chairman. Well, the European Parliament and this committee in particular attaches a great importance to the EASO. Personally, I was a shadow to Rapporteur Jean Lambert on this file, and it was actually my first file coming here to Parliament. And so I'm very happy to see you here and to see that the EASO is finally being established. I hope that this is the beginning of a good dialogue and cooperation between us. And I would like to know if you are committed to come before this Parliament and this committee in particular whenever your presence is needed here, and to providing us with full information, details, documentation on every issue that may arise. As the Executive Director of an European agency, this would be the occasion to communicate officially with our 500 million fellow citizens, so this question is of crucial importance. Second question on Dublin. We have heard many times, even here in this committee, that the Dublin system is broken. And I'm very interested in knowing your personal opinion on this, because before you start your mandates, this is a good occasion to know what are your personal views on this. Do you believe that the Dublin system needs reform? How would you go about it if you could, if given the chance? Third question, and a very important one to me, is on resettlement. I have been the rapporteur on a co-decision file on the European Refugee Fund and of an initiative file on the establishment of a joint European resettlement programme. These two files, these two reports, have been approved with a wide majority in this Parliament, ranging from communist to conservative. Everybody was and is still committed to work towards increasing the number of resettled refugees in the European Union, which are, as you know, extremely low, lower than 5,000 per year as compared to 80,000 in the United States, and as compared to the 200,000 resettlement needs for each year that the UNHCR forecasts. In these reports, we have asked for the establishment of a resettlement unit, a permanent unit, staffed with proper human resources, and we felt that the adequate institutional location of this resettlement unit would be exactly the EASO. I would like to ask you how would you go about establishing this resettlement unit inside the EASO and making it work. I've seen that, I've heard with pleasure that you talked about resettlement in your presentation, and you said that cooperation with the UNHCR is most needed in that respect. And, well, I hope that this resettlement unit will be the focal point of this cooperation with the UNHCR. I would like to hear your practical opinions on how to establish it. Thank you.
Thank you. I understand that the non-inscrit have no intention to be part of the discussion at this point of time. So we turn back to Mr. Visser for a reply, let's say 7 minutes, so that we can still set some time for some other members which are willing to take the floor and have a second round of additional questions. Mr. Visser.
Thank you very much, Mr. President. Thank you very much, honourable members of Parliament, for your questions. Let me, if you allow me, first underline, as I try to do in my introduction, that I'm fully convinced that Europe has developed in such a way that a common European asylum system is very needed. Needed for a reason of progressing cooperation within the European Union, but also needed as this is a subject of a humanitarian nature that needs careful consideration. Europe has minimum standards, but Europe has also humanitarian standards, and they should be met. And to meet them, apparently, you need to organise certain things, and that, in that respect, EASO can and as far as I'm concerned, will play a role. If I just try to group the different questions, then I start with the solidarity and solidarity mechanism. I'm very much aware about the discussions here in this House, and I'm aware of the political discussion behind this. I think for an operational agency like EASO, that's not for me to take any formal stand in that. But I look at it in a different and more practical way. Solidarity should be something that will have to be realised in practice. Given alone the discussions about voluntary or not voluntary, that is in the end something that is not for EASO to decide, but EASO certainly can play a practical role and trying, for example, but just as an example, in Greece, what just now happens, that might provide opportunities as well to discuss on the operational level if some sort of solidarity, including the solidarity in the sense that Mr. Busuttil meant, can in this particular case be given one of the answers. I mean, there are many answers needed for the Greek situation, but one of the solutions might be in this place. And I think that for EASO to start a discussion from the practical side might be a contribution to the more wider discussion of a solidarity mechanism. Let me take, if you allow me, the resettlement question, as it is closely linked at the same time. I have read, of course, the report, a very important one, with many practical things in it. Also here is a little bit the same as I said on the previous subject. I'm aware of the political discussion, and I think it would be unwise for an agency to try to play a role in the political discussion. But at the same time, resettlement, and I come from a country where resettlement is a long tradition, is one of the solutions in the migration field. And resettlement and reallocation are two sides that both need attention. So, as I said in my introduction, EASO certainly is available to play a role in this respect, both in the external and the internal resettlement, should play a sort of front office role, given the normal partners in that process, as the Member States and the UNHCR, their own role to play, of course, but I think that EASO can play a coordinating role, and I hope in time a stimulating role in this sense, because it is a subject of concern, and as far as EASO can play its role there, it is ready to do so. Then the question about unaccompanied minors. Of course, as Mr. Busuttil said, that's a much wider subject than an asylum bureau in its handle. At the other hand, it is one of the major trends in the asylum flows. So it has to be part of the work of EASO, I think very much on the training side to start with. The ways to deal with unaccompanied minors within the European Union are different, sometimes very different. So there is certainly something to be gained. And in trying to, for example, the country of origin information, but also in country reports, I think EASO can play another role to make more visible and so more tangible this problem that is very much of concern. To go to the expectations that were asked and the priorities, one priority is a given, that is the Greek National Action Plan. That has been decided before EASO came into function, so that will be on the top of the priorities list. The second is decided by the regulation itself, that the number of projects that are in different places already have been started will have to be taken over by the new organisation, and it will be of the utmost concern that that will be done in a way that it's a smooth takeover, a smooth transfer of projects that in itself are very good and very well functioning, and to develop them further. And third, in my view, one of the major subjects to take up in the beginning is to elaborate on the subject of country of origin information. That is where Europe and a European approach can have a very added value for obvious reasons, and for less obvious but sometimes obvious reasons, many countries are about afraid of that. There's a lot of discussion behind it. There's a lot of discussion about the country of origin information, and at the same time it is, I think, a subject to gain. Given the size of the organisation, it would not be wise, in my view, for the first year to have more priorities than this. But that is, of course, something that will certainly be discussed here and elsewhere. Particular pressures and the definition. There is a good definition in the regulation itself, and I expect, and I suppose that that was behind the question that was asked, I expect that in practice every individual moment that will give a lot of discussion. But that's good. It should not be a sort of possibility for countries that encounter a little difficulty to have others pay for that same problem. So it will have to be particular, it will have to be temporary, and it will have to be real pressure. But to give a definition just now, I think it's not for me at this moment to answer that precisely. The expectations and when will the office be operational? Well, the last part of that has been decided by yourself, because that's in the regulation. 19th of June next, it should be up and running. That is a very short period, given where we are now. But that will be the task, and that will be fulfilled. So in June next year, I foresee a functioning office. But already before that, because of the subjects that I mentioned, I hope to have enough staff in place that can already start working and not wait till the month of June. The question about the reality in Greece, that's a very serious one, and maybe that is an example of what the added value of EASO might be. Exactly this, there's a presumption in the regulations, in the Dublin regulation. There is expertise in practice, and apparently in the real field practice, in the operational practice, not all these presumptions do have the effect that was expected, I suppose, both by the Council and the European Parliament. And I hope that EASO will be in a position to make that clear and to try to solve these practical problems. The question about Greece, Frontex and EASO and the rabbits. There is a division of competences between Frontex and EASO. But there's also a field that they should cooperate very closely. It is in the action plan of the Commission already taken up that EASO should very quickly start to think about how to train people working for Frontex, experts, border guards, etc., to be more aware of the fact that people they encounter can ask for asylum and that it is a right to do so. So training will certainly be, in the relation with Frontex, a very prominent element. Secondly, the action plan for Greece consists mainly of two parts. One is border, that is of course for Frontex, and the other is the asylum system in Greece, and to put that in place. That will be the main focus for EASO. Dublin is broken. I would not personally... Okay. Dublin, just two questions and I stop. Dublin is not broken in my view, not in my experience professionally. but it is broken in parts. The relation with Greece has been broken, yes, but not between the other countries. It's the system in itself that has proven to work, and as long as we do not have anything better, I think we should invest in repairing it where it's broken. Final question about the European Parliament. I very much am available for a dialogue, including giving whatever information, documentation, what is needed by your Commission. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Visser. We still have a second round. I please beg you. I please beg the members who are willing to take the floor to make it real short so that we can make it in time. So I suggest maximum 2 minutes each. Mrs. Hohlmeier.
Herr Vorsitzender, vielen Dank. Ich habe
Thank you very much. I have two practical questions. In Greece, in particular, there is the fact that Greece has to build some decentralised accommodation for refugees because of the huge, to prevent the huge influx of these migrants into Athens and kind of calm things down. Are you willing to give Greece support there and help them out with speeding up their procedures, registration and so on? Now, my second question. In Greece, there's another specific problem in that 75% of the people coming in are not applying for asylum. They are quite openly saying they just want to come to Europe because of poverty, because of the conditions in their own country of origin, all sorts of different reasons. They may see no future for themselves and they think they'll have a much better chance of doing well economically and socially in one of our member states. Do you think that there is an opportunity there in terms of resettlement, repatriation, dealing with embassies and so on to kind of help out Greece so that problems of that kind can be sorted out? You know, for example, the repatriation, the rate of repatriation in some countries is so low because so many applications are accepted. If the country has to deal with that itself, it's obviously a lot more harder than if they think there's 27 member states behind them.
Maximum.
Dank u wel, voorzitter.
Thank you. And welcome to the committee, Mr. Visser, and congratulations, of course, on your presentation. I'm going to ask in English.
State persecution is recognized as a ground for seeking international protection in the Geneva Convention. There is a great variation amongst member states in the recognition of refugee status for women and girls at risk of gender-based and gender-specific persecution in their country of origin. In addition, the Gender Equality Strategy states that the European Asylum Support Office will promote gender-specific training and best practices amongst member states. My questions are, how can the EASO contribute to ensure that the implementation is respectful on the UNHCR guidelines on gender-based persecution and guidance on FGM, female genital mutilation? What concrete steps will you take to support member states in this task? And in particular, how will you ensure a gender focus in the work plan and in the structure of the EASO? Will you develop a gender-specific expertise in the collection of information on the country of origin papers? Thank you.
Thank you. Mrs. Entveld.
Ja, dank u wel, voorzitter. Ik zal het kort houden.
Thank you, Chair. I'll be brief. I agree with those who have congratulated you on your presentation. I think it's great that you've informed us that you intend to cooperate closely with the European Parliament. I have a question of a more political nature because you said in your introduction that you want to work as an honest, neutral and independent broker. And I very much agree that that's what's needed. I was just wondering, in this policy area, whether neutrality is a luxury that you might not be able to afford. The climate in the member states is increasingly hostile to all sorts of people who are coming to Europe for all sorts of different reasons. And some member states simply don't play by the rules. So I think that you know most about the member states. You've seen asylum policy being applied close up. So how are you going to deal with member states who really don't want to abide by the baseline standards?
Thank you. And Mrs. Wikström.
Thank you very much, Chairman. Well, I was the person who led the delegation from the LIBE committee to Greece last week. And I would like to thank the colleagues who took part and contributed in such a creative and generous way to that delegation. I'd like to also thank the Secretariat, who did an excellent job. They worked very hard to provide us with a very useful agenda with a lot of good content. Now, many people have already referred to what we saw in Greece, and I think we have to say it clearly. There was a collapsed system which is highlighting increasing social divergence in Greece. I think what we're seeing is a humanitarian and social crisis. Now, in January, there's going to be new legislation being adopted, and we've seen agreements between Greece and the European Commission. We've seen a presidential decree as well. Member states are offering to provide assistance to Greece, but what we cannot accept, and I think we all agree in the delegation that went to Greece, what we can't accept is that the transitional period, which will soon be adopted, should be extended over 1 year. As if these 50,000 cases, which have not yet even been dealt with, as if they just suddenly occurred overnight. Now, this is something which has been building up for a long time, and I'm wondering how this office could contribute to really getting things moving, to picking up the tempo, providing the proper structures and building up a proper service so that a humanitarian crisis can be averted. And we're seeing a growing social crisis in Athens very clearly, but also in other capital cities of our member states. And what role is the office going to have to somehow manage to support member states and help them to avert this kind of crisis that we're seeing?
As you see, Mr. Fischer, we're starting to mind the timing, so I beg you to help us to respect the timing that we have scheduled. So I beg you, if you can reply in 5 minutes, it'll be good.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Number of questions about Greece. The action plan that you all know.
Excuse me. Did you ask for it, Mrs. Lambert? So I'm so sorry, Mrs. Lambert, but I hadn't noticed. So you got the floor before turning back to Mr. Fischer. 2 minutes, please. 2 minutes.
Okay, thank you. As people have mentioned, I was the rapporteur for Parliament on the Asylum Support Office, with very good and positive cooperation, from virtually all of the other political groups. And so we're very pleased to see you here with the EASO en route, and also very pleased, I think, because what we're looking for is a European approach, not an intergovernmental approach. So this is another reason why we're pleased to see the Support Office en route. One of the areas that we felt as well was important within the Support Office was the sort of additional expertise and potential input from civil society via the Consultative Forum, whether that's academics, NGOs, and indeed, of course, local authorities, who are often the people who deliver on the ground. It's part of your job description to get this Consultative Forum up and moving. So could you say a few words about how you see that developing, the timescale, and how that Consultative Forum might add value as well to the role of the Support Office? Thank you.
Thank you. Back to you, Mr. Fischer.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman. Greece. You know all the action plan and the different steps in that, I suppose. On all the asylum parts of it, EASO will have to play a role. That is on reception as well as on the building of the service, the immigration service in Greece. I think a very important part is the training, especially on the quality and the levels. That's also an answer to my left neighbour who asked for how to contribute and how to deal with it. Well, there are no sanctions for EASO, so I have to rely on trying to be independent. Trying to be independent will also depend on the European Parliament, because it will be a balancing act. I am certainly aware of that. There are member states, they are within member states, there's the policy part and the operational part, which is not always the same. There's the Commission, there's the UNHCR, the European Parliament, there's the public, there's civil society. So there's so many actors that I hope I can be impartial in that total field, but that will certainly be a challenge. Gender recognition, that is for me an integral part of country of origin information. That is where it starts. That's where the information has to be gathered. That is where the information has to be made visible and the problems related to it. So yes, it certainly will be part of the country of origin information. And second, that is also the part of the European curriculum. If we succeed in having a standard level throughout the countries, throughout the European member states, both on quality and on substance, including subjects like gender, then that will certainly be a task for EASO. Civil society consultative forum. I envisage, given the setup and the time, that in the second half of next year, the start of the consultative forum will take place. I'm about to inform myself about the different experiences that have been in separate parts of the European Union with consultative forums and with civil society. They're very different, so I have not yet come to a final conclusion, but I come from a professional background where civil society always has had a very direct input from their experience, from their expertise into the policy process and into the operational process. And I will certainly build on that experience. Thank you very much.